Okay, so it looks like that stream is live. Hey everyone. So I talked about this a little bit ago on the channel. I was thinking about doing more extemporaneous style videos. So here we go. They call this Extemporaneous with Escribio. I'm going to be talking a little bit about Blockjugate training, Condulating, whatever you want to call it. Because if you've been watching my recent videos, I've been talking about how I'm laying out my own programs, and I do use elements of block periodization in my developmental days, at least for myself right now. I also do it with my athletes if we are in prep for a show. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so let's move my head over there. There we go. So right now, this is my current bench cycle over the next 9 weeks. So 3 weeks of 5x5s. Then I move into more typical kind of developmental speed, strength, skilled work that you'd see. So triples and doubles, and then some fatigue singles thereafter. And then if those percentages do seem a little high to you, bear in mind they are based off of a recent RPE8 single, which is roughly 90 to 92% of an estimated 1 rep max. But regardless, that's what my developmental upper body day looks like. Now, if we move to the next bit here, this is my upper max effort day or intensive training. So for the first 3 weeks of this program, I was doing the Elite FTS bench, which is, kind of like a Swiss bar bench with a 1.5 board on it. Then what I moved into for the next 3 weeks, which today was week 4, so it's the start of the second 3-week wave there. It's an SU camber press to a 6RM. And SU just means seated unsupported overhead press. So just sitting on a plyo box or a flat bench with no back support overhead press. And then I do a breakdown with the dumbbell 30-degree incline press. Now, if you're not familiar with the breakdown, it's something Fred Hatfield came up with. You take whatever you're doing, you work up to a heavy set of 4 to 6, drop the weight by 20% and do a set of 10 to 15. And then after that, you do 50% of your top set for the day for max quality reps, anywhere between 10 to 30, just depends on how good you are at reps. So that's the 3 weeks right there. Yeah. And then for the last 3 weeks, it'll be dumbbell 60-degree press for a 10, 8, or 6 RM, and then a close grip axle bench breakdown. I'm going to put these two kind of waves side by side so you can see a bit more of how it lines up. So for example, in week 1, 5x5 at 220 on the bench, and then I did a 3 RM of the EFS bench. And you can see the idea here is as the weeks go by on the developmental day, my first bench of the week, in these later waves, it obviously gets very heavy. And then, in week 9, I'm going to be attempting a new 1 RM. Hopefully in week 8, I can hit a 1 RM as well. The percentages, I did fudge the numbers a little bit. For example, I'm not going to load 310 onto a bar. I'm either going for 305 or I'm loading 3 plates. I'm not doing 310. So that's just something to keep in mind there. But the idea here is across the weeks, especially on day 1, I'm hitting fatigue singles. That way, come week 9, I should be able to hit a pretty good weight fresh, right? Because I built a lot of strength and work capacity here. But then conversely, down here on my, what would normally be my intensive day, what I've done is I've switched the variations out to be ones that are substantially lighter and require less loading. That way I'm not beating myself up pressing ultra heavy 2 times a week. And that just allows me to control fatigue over the training wave. Keeps things interesting as well. I do like having those 3-week waves with a max effort variation. Just very fun. I like breakdown as a good second option for a press. And close grip axle bench is just a movement I really enjoy. Really lines up my triceps. Feels good in my joints too. Pressing with an axle, it's my number 1 preference. I actually prefer it to a barbell. I think for most people they'd be better off. But that's just a personal opinion there. A little side by side. But again, those are the 2 weeks next to each other. So the program is still conjugate in nature, but what you find is in later weeks, the 2 days almost switch positions, and it allows me to keep making progress on my priority lift right now, for example, the bench, while still getting enough variation. The intensive essentially becomes a more focused bodybuilding day right now. In a normal training wave, I wouldn't be doing something like this, but in the off season, I do get a little more experimental. This, to me, makes a lot of sense for what I'm trying to accomplish right now. And if we look back in those first 3 weeks, using a partial range of motion like this with the Elite FTS bench, that allowed me to keep handling heavy weights so I didn't lose any of that skill of what a heavy weight felt like. If you've ever done a volume block and then you try to do a 1 RM immediately thereafter, just unracking, you're like, hey, what's going on? This doesn't feel right. So this allows me to hedge my bets and just approach it from both ends. Hope that all makes sense. Just ignore that. That is a reused slide from something else. But anyways, just a quick extemporaneous talk on Blockjugate or Condulating. If you've got any questions, if you want to see more on this, just hit me down in the comments below. Hope you folks have a great weekend ahead.